Hey guys, I'm Josh, and this week I'm going to be just joshing around, making a tablet and phone charging station. Hopefully it'll organize this just a little bit better. For a short while now, my wife and I have been talking about some way to organize this mess just a little bit better. That's actually an old magazine rack that we had repurposed to hold our tablets and or phones. And it's worked pretty well for us in the past, but we keep accumulating more devices. And with each new device, we have another cord that has to go with it. So I decided to build a bigger, better charging station. And as you can see, I am using the same wood that I've used in the past several projects that I've made, that laminated stuff. The first thing that you saw me do was to draw up plans and outline how I'm going to build this thing, because as we all know, outlines are very important. I did, however, modify my plans several times throughout the process of making this thing. My initial plans were to make this a foot wide by roughly 9 inches deep. I wanted to allot for 3 different slots for all the devices, and I cut out all the pieces to reflect that. But ultimately I changed my mind and made it a bit smaller. As you can see, for these vertical dividers, I cut one out and then I used it to mark the other pieces to cut them out as well. The idea here was to cut notches into the sides so that the side support brackets would be flush with the outside edge of these dividers. When sitting in place, these dividers somewhat resemble a hanging file system. Little side note here, you're going to see me use this scroll saw a lot in this video. My table saw has been giving me issues lately, so it's out of commission. Now, like I said, originally the plan was to make the charging station this size. However, once I got it all together and looked at it, my wife and I decided that it probably wouldn't fit in the space that it was going. Or rather, that it technically could fit, but it'd just be way too big for that space. But I went ahead and sanded up all these pieces anyways, because I figured I'd probably use them in the future at some point. You may have noticed that I slid a piece of plywood in here for me to sand these pieces on top of. That's because the top of my workbench is getting pretty dirty from all of the powdered graphite and different things that I've done for past videos. At some point I'm going to have to recondition the bench top. Here I'm measuring, marking, and cutting out the piece that is going to act as the bottom for the dividers. You may notice that I'm cutting this piece out to the same dimensions that reflect my original design, and I ended up cutting this piece down to a smaller size as well. I probably did twice as much measuring and cutting as I should have for this project, but I learned a lot for the future, so next time it's not going to be as bad. Now this is the final design that I settled on. You'll also notice that I cut each of the dividers to make them look tiered, like that magazine rack back there. For the bottom portion, I'm making a drawer to slide in there, and I wanted it to be flush to the front as well. I took a thin piece of scrap, which I marked then cut to act as rails for the drawer to slide on top of. For the drawer itself, I used leftover scraps cut off of pieces that I used for the main body of the charging station. I alternated between marking, cutting, and sanding all of these pieces until the drawer was ready to be assembled. If and when I do another one of these charging stations, I am going to rework my design for the drawer. Like I previously said, I was trying to make this drawer using all the scrap pieces that were left over, but it really wasn't necessary to make all of the pieces out of this thick wood, because it resulted in a smaller overall capacity for the drawer itself. So, like I said, next time I'm going to plan out my design just a little bit better. For the assembly of this entire charging station, I am trying to use just glue and brad nails as much as possible, only because I wanted the overall aesthetics for this thing to be simple and clean. But honestly, once the glue sets up, this charging station is going to be solid. I repeated the same steps for setting the rails into place, gluing then brad nailing them into position. Next up, it was time to assemble the main body of the charging station. I carefully applied a generous amount of glue to the dividers and the side brackets. I then clamped the back divider into place so it wouldn't move when I nailed it. I repeated the same process with the front divider. For the middle divider, I centered it into place and then repeated the same thing again. For the bottom piece of the divider section, you can see here that I cut it shy of that front divider. This was to allot space for that drawer to be flush. To find the right placement for the glue, I applied glue to that middle divider and then set that bottom piece into place to mark it, and then applied more glue. I got it back into place and then installed the nails as before. The drawer was initially a little bit too tight, so I had to sand the sides down for it to slide in and out nice and easy. Now for this next part, I had always planned on building this little box to hide the charger, splitter, and all the wires. But I decided to add a little hidden compartment to hold the wireless charging pad as well. Not every phone or tablet or anything has wireless charging, but our phones do have it, so I wanted to make good use of that. The box is a simple 5.5-inch square design. However, on the insides of the front and back vertical supports, I wanted to install some brackets which would hold a little shelf, which would then hold the charging pad. I thought I'd save a little bit of time by just drilling these screws right into place. However, remember kids, always pre-drill for your screws. So yeah, I don't know what I was thinking there. I should have just pre-drilled it to begin with. You'll notice here that this box only has 3 sides to it. The reason for that is because I didn't want that little splitter box to get too warm, so I wanted to leave one side completely open to allow it to breathe and vent. For the little charging pad shelf, I got all my measurements, marked it down on this piece of Luan, and cut it out. I didn't want to attach the shelf into place because I wanted to have the ability to pull the little charger pad back out. For the top of this box, I'm going to use a piece of Luan as well. I actually tested the charging capability a large number of times before deciding on doing this. If you get a piece that's too thick, it will negatively affect the charging capability. However, this Luan is about 3/16 of an inch thick, and that thickness, coupled with the thickness of the phone case, seemed to be just right. Any thicker on either one of those and it probably wouldn't have worked. Since this box is going to be housing that USB splitter, I marked out 2 holes for the wires to pass through. I had initially planned on passing the wires through the side of this box and through the side of the main body of the charging station. However, it didn't quite work out that way, but I'm not too upset about it. Each of these holes is wide enough to pass several wires through it. For the drawer front, I marked and then cut out a little handhold to be able to pull the drawer out. And then, of course, sanded down any rough edges that were left over. The drawer slide operation wasn't exactly smooth. However, once I applied this teak oil finish, it slid perfectly. I haven't really used this stuff before in any of my videos, but it works in large part the same as the Danish oil. The ending appearance is very similar to the natural tone Danish oil. However, the smell of this stuff is just a little bit more pungent. I used a brush to apply the teak oil down in all the places I couldn't get the rag. I wasn't super particular about how much I put on every surface, but I did use a generous amount over this entire charging station. There's nothing really special about this oil finish, but it really brings out that natural beauty of the wood. And after about a day of dry time, this thing was ready to be put to use. To be honest, if I were to do this again, I would probably make this a little bit bigger than what I ended up with. Although I am very happy with how it turned out. It suits our needs pretty well, and it looks a lot better than it did before. I thought it was a cool little bonus to have that little wireless charging pad be hidden and still functional. Just to do a comparison shot between the two, here's the messy before and the sleek and clean after. Well guys, that does it for this week's video. I hope you all enjoyed watching me make this charging station, because I enjoyed making it. It was a good learning experience for me, and I'm pretty happy with how it turned out. It definitely does a good job of organizing that space. If you did like this video, please be sure to like and subscribe below, and also I have a lot of other stuff that you can check out here and over here. Thanks for watching, I'll see you next time.